Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversations are pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Did you bring your thinking caps? Because it's time to put them on. Because the conversation starts now.
I'm open to I go by he him, but
you know. All right, we're gonna talk a little bit about that too. Brains! We are back at the Spizza. The place where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. All right, so I'm putting a little disclaimer. I want you to be real clear. This is going to be a very enlightening, informative interview with Gavid Gaybramson. We're going to talk about the LGBTQ plus community. We are going to ask some questions because I am a 60-year-old heterosexual Black woman. He is a gay, I don't know, how old are you?
42.
42-year-old man that is a life coach for queer youth. And let's be real clear about something here, Brains. If you're not mature enough to handle it on either side of that spectrum, click off now.
Bye.
Okay, because we're going deep, and I am going to ask some questions, and they are going to be from a place of ignorance because I don't know. I'm not gay. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. But if you caught up in your feelings, then this may not be the one for you. Because I told Gavid that I am going to pull back the layers of the onion and there will be some tears shed. Okay? Because we want to know. I want everybody to be happy. But you cannot be happy and make an informed decision unless you have complete information. And that's on both sides. Okay? So we got that clear? All right. So now let's welcome our guest to the show. Gavid, I can never say Abramson. Abramson. He is a love. I found him through one of my other guests that was on the show. And this is the first time that he's been on a podcast. So I got me a virgin.
About time I was that again.
He loves it. He loves it. But this is really, really important. And we're going to talk about this subject because you know what? He's dealing with young people. He's dealing with young minds. And we think that we're confused as we get older, but they struggle with it as well. So Gavid, tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
How do I show up in the world? I just try to show up in the world as my authentic self with my authentic heart. I came into coaching or into this career, later in life, and I had a tough time when I was coming out. I came out in the 90s. There was a lot of anti-gay stuff in the public. And, I had a great family, but, when no matter what I did, I always felt unseen and unsafe and unloved, like many queer people do, because nobody knew who the real me was. I was bullied. There was all this imagery in the world about that queer people are evil and bad, gonna die of AIDS. You're not gonna live a life. You're never gonna have all the things that the world has to offer. And I want to work with young kids to know that, like, the world is theirs. They are right and good and not evil and bad. They're right and good, and everything, the world is theirs. Like, if they can learn and own an identity, with my assistance or the assistance of coaching, and just learn to treasure that there's power in going against the grind and being different, and you get to see the world in all its beauty in different ways when you learn and come to terms with this identity that makes you unique and special.
Well, this might be a long interview, Brains, because I got a whole lot of questions. All right. So here, let's go. I asked some of my brains, about 20 of them. I said, when someone approaches you and you know that they are from the gay LGBTQ plus, I'm just going to say LGBTQ, if that's okay, community. What is the first
Say queer
thing?
community. If you want to make it easy, say queer community, because it's
Okay,
kind of
okay, so that's the proper term, because folks get picky about what words you use.
Right. And the thing is my mother, like, I remember when I grew up, the word queer was
Yeah,
bad.
it was a dirty word. Yeah.
Bad. You're a queer. My mother would say queer, with the thick Boston accent.
Yeah. Or they would say that you're a sissy.
Yeah.
Or they would say girls were bull dykes. That's what my
Mhm.
neighbor next door. She said, "Oh, my sister's a bull dyke." I said, "What is that?" So I didn't know. Okay. So without taking away the labels, we're going to talk about the queer community. And I said, what is the first thing that you think about when you see a person from this community approach you? You know what they told me? How they get down,
Mm.
how they are sexually satisfied. And you know what I told them? That's pretty damn perverted.
Yeah.
You don't look at their heart, you don't look at their eye color, you don't look at their skin color, they don't look at their nationality. You look at how they reach an orgasm.
Yeah.
I said, so what's wrong with you as a heterosexual? I didn't understand that. So I said, okay, after you get beyond that point, then what do you look at? Well, their mannerisms. Okay, they're unique. One different for the female, which I'm, saying women, the mannerisms are different for a male, but that's what makes you unique. That's what puts you in this pool that's different than other people. What do you say to those people that have that kind of mindset?
It's a little small-minded. I mean, plain and simple. I'm a person who has sex. You're a person who has sex.
Yes, I
Hopefully,
do.
right? Like, hopefully, you know, and what I do when I have sexual behavior has absolutely nothing for defining the character or person that I am inside. I am a good, kind, decent person. I believe in integrity. I believe in experiencing life to the fullest. I believe in a good, deep hug. Those are the things that I believe in. And whether or not I have sex with some person or whether or not I'm celibate, it has nothing to do with my sexual preference. I have gay male friends. I mean, I have more gay male friends than I do. You kind of, people do segregate into their familiar communities, but I do have friends across the spectrum. I've had trans friends since I was 17 years old, and lesbian friends across the gamut. But gay men are seen as sexual beings and only sexual beings. Often only sexual beings. And I have gay male friends that are celibate and asexual, but still identify as gay. And they don't enjoy sex, but their attraction and their emotional attraction is towards other men.
Okay,
So,
pump the brakes. As you get to a point where I need to get clarity, I got to interrupt.
Interrupt.
Define gay for me. Gay used to just be a happy term, you know. But I mean, that's not to say that gay people aren't happy, but what is gay? Because I'm gonna tell you, I had a conversation with my mentor, who is about 80 plus. And let me tell you, she was like my mother. My mother's like, I don't care. You're wasting too much time on that stuff. There's other more important stuff. But she made a very, very important distinction because she's a brilliant woman, my mentor. And she said that she's now working with the Olympic Committee, that they are doing genomic testing. And in the genomics, there's an X and a Y for male, or two Ys or two X's for female, right? She says, but now it has been proven, scientifically proven, that there could be two X's and a Y, and two Y's and an X, that people are born with this genome makeup that makes them in this, for the lack of a better term, subcategory of queer and gay.
Yes. So I think that for me, I mean, the basic term gay is a man who is attracted to another man for sex or relationships. But identity is very personal, and that's how I mean, I'll tell you a story. I have a friend of mine who identifies as gay, but sleeps with women on occasion. In my mind, that means that this person is bisexual, right? Like that's what we all are taught. But it's how you identify. And if I identify as gay, you as another human being should respect how I identify. Part of my identity as a gay man is gay culture, the gay experience, the knowing of being an other. I'm a white male. I could, if I was born straight, I would have had a very different experience in this world. But because I was called a faggot and pushed into a locker and made to feel unsafe, it created this identity in me that also creates solidarity with other gay men and other people in my community.
Okay.
So
you said, okay, but you did say that you are a gay man, and gay pretty much means an attraction to other men. Again, your sexuality, brains, is between your thighs. Your gender identity is between your ears. And from the research that I've done, there's 52 different things that can be happening between your ears.
Yeah.
Go back to the original conversation of, when I asked my friends, I was like, okay, so you think about how people, sexually get down because they're gay. I said, but you have no idea what your heterosexual friends are doing. They be doing some way out shit. I was sitting next to my my coworker one day, and she had all these little wets and rashes all on her leg. I said to myself, I said, Shelly, I said, you done been bit by some bugs or something like that? She goes, oh no. She said, that's me and my man. She says he had a little leather whip. I said, leather whip? She says, and every time I run my hands over these welts, I get wet. And he has a mask, and he has this. Now, look, okay, and I'm not knocking people that like to do some way out stuff, because I can't even tell you what's going on over here in 38 years. It's been down for the underground. However, when I looked at her, until I seen those welts on her legs, I was just thinking she was square as a pool table and just as green. You don't know what you don't know. So
you don't know what goes behind happens behind
exactly. Yeah. And that had nothing.
You don't know what happens in my head. You don't know what happens, what thoughts I have. You don't know any of it unless you have the conversation.
And think about it, brains, your first sexual awakening, maybe 4, 5, 6, when you asked your little friend, if you show me yours, I'll show you mine. You remember that? And for the most part, it was the same gender because you had the same thing. Then when boys saw their mother's breasts, then when they started growing pubic hair, or when the sister saw the brother or saw the baby that was born, this is where the social confines and social structure starts to appear. But don't ever think that you've never had that illusion or fantasy or desire or curiosity that, what is it like to be with someone that has the same genitalia as I am?
I mean, that's what I said, like sexuality and sexual preference is a spectrum. I am not attracted to women, period. Like I don't
never have been
about it. But it is a spectrum, and I know a lot of my straight male friends have had experiences that they enjoyed with someone of the same sex, but do not identify as gay or bisexual. As the same as my friend who identifies as gay, that has occasional sex with women. But also, gender is a spectrum too. You know, we talked about men who identify uh as gay but are more feminine or whatever it may be. uh it's how they choose to express themselves. It's much more about expression too. There's an
Mhm,
expression
mhm,
and
mhm.
and showing the world who you are. Like, are you a colorful person? Are you a black and white person? And people express that in many, many different ways.
Okay, that's fair. That makes perfect sense. We've talked about gay men.
Hmm.
Again, like I said, you're not attracted to the vagina.
Not at all.
But
I think they're scary.
it's not a bottomless pit. Now, let me ask you a question. So, David, when did you come to the realization that you were different, that you realized that you were gay or you were attracted to men?
I had sexual experience with another man at a very young age. I think I was around 13.
Okay, wait, let
Um,
me stop right there. Was it consensual or were
yes, we
you
were the same age.
violated?
We were
Okay,
the same age.
okay.
Um,
Now, wait, let me ask another question.
mhm.
Was it a full-on sexual experience or were you just kind of
Little heavy
checking it
petting,
out? A little heavy petting?
a little, little touchy, not intercourse.
Okay, but kissing and really
Yeah,
kind of exploring the
yeah,
intimacy because we want to talk about that too, the intimacy of love, sex,
yeah,
and passion. We're
absolutely.
not just talking about fucking. I'm sorry. I just have to tell people because that's what they think.
No,
It's just raw dog. You know,
no,
that's what you want
no.
to do. It's
It
that.
was, you know, I mean, sexuality begins, people start exploring sex at puberty. That's when they start having the sexual desires. I had the same desire to explore when that change started to happen. It's just that my attraction was towards, and now I don't know if I would have, so the hardest person to come out to is yourself. I think when I was, uh, on my website, I have, top 7 things to know about coming out, queercoachdavid.com. The top 7 things to know about, and my number one thing is coming out to your coming out to yourself first, and it's often the hardest thing to do, to admit to yourself that you're this quote unquote evil and bad thing, that you've gotten negative, only negative representations, are very few positive representations in culture. um you know to admit to yourself that you're this thing is often harder. And when I was preparing this list that I made, I asked a lot of my friends, like, do you remember the moment you realized you were gay or whatever? And every single person was like, yeah, I remember asking myself, are you gay? Are you lesbian? Are you whatever? And every single person remembers having that epiphany. And I mean, a lot of people could just put yourself in another person's shoes for a moment. Could you imagine how difficult it is as a human being to not know this very defining feature of yourself until you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s? I mean, um, that it's incredibly hard to have that realization. Um, but once you're secure with your identity, um, and you know who you are, and the world isn't going to end because you're this person, it does make it a little bit easier to express that slowly to the outside world.
Okay, let's talk about the outside world. Your
Hmm.
mama and your daddy.
Hmm.
Okay, because I'm talking from a heterosexual position, brains.
Hmm.
Parents have a certain expectation And I tell y'all about expectations all the time. You cannot rely on what somebody else is going to do.
Yeah.
So you have an expectation that your child is going to get married and they are going to have a child. When I'm saying a heterosexual marriage is for the most part.
Cisgendered, heteronormative life.
Right. Okay. And the church doctrine has taught you that. And that's what you've seen mom and daddy do. And, you've heard the sniggles and the giggles. Oh, David, he's a little different. He's special. He's this, he's that. You've heard all the whispering. And so it's hard for a parent. Okay. I got a family member that is in love with a transgender. And it was difficult for the family to accept, only because, again, they have this certain idea. But what they came to the realization is that is not your life.
It is not.
If you, as the parent, have what you want, what you need, if your child is happy, why do you want to be the bone of contention? Why do you want to make trouble for them instead of love them? Don't you realize that they are confused and they're struggling too? They're struggling more than you are struggling. They have to live with it every single day. But what I'm also seeing is that the world of transgender is, metamorphosized, and I mean everywhere. I don't know if it was suppressed. I remember my parents were so cool. I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. They took me to see a movie of Sojourner Truth, the first transgender. And they explained it to me. So that's why my mother was so cool with it. It wasn't like, my father never really talked about it. My mother, she was like, whatever, as long as people are happy. So what do you say to parents? Because they are struggling. And if they're struggling, they're making it difficult for their child. You just automatically expect your parent to just, oh, okay, well, it's all right. I embrace this. I understand this. You and your lover can come and you can show affection and it's okay. That's really not the reality of what's happening in a lot of places. Not all, but in a lot.
I mean, my understanding is someone who's going to seek out my advice is that they're a little bit more open to receiving the spectrum of gender and sexuality. So that I one thing I would say is that when we ask you, what is your number one responsibility, or do you feel is your number one responsibility as a parent?
Is to love, protect, nurture, educate, support, and check their ass when they're online. I'm keeping it real.
Model, all that.
But that doesn't mean that I control their genitalia.
No, you do not. So if you are having a child that you suspect is in the queer community and they aren't ready to express that outwardly to you or to share that deep knowledge that they have of themselves. I have a family member whose son came out of the closet a few years ago, and the one bit of advice that I gave this family member is, as often and as frequently as possible, tell your child that you love them, because every person who's going through this journey has a sense of that unseen, unloved, unsafe. And if they know that the person who's supposed to care for them most in the world loves them and wants the best for them, at least it makes that level of depression or anxiety that you have a little bit less. And when your child blesses you with the honor of knowing who they are on a deep fundamental level, because not every family gets to know each other on a really deep fundamental level, because they don't feel open to talk about it. Listen, ask questions and say, I want to know this. I want to understand it because I love you and I want to know it and I want to know who you are and what makes you this person that I see that is in front of me. just repeatedly just ask questions. When I sat down with my mother, she talked about the fear of loss of our hopes, dreams, and aspirations that she had for me. She wanted me to have children, and she wanted me to walk down the aisle. Now, none of those are my actual hopes, dreams, and aspirations. Like, I don't want children. I don't want to get married. Not my choice. Not my vibe. But my mother created this safe space where we could talk openly, where she could express her reservations, and I could discuss my pain, and the experiences. I remember we had this conversation. There's two really important conversations we had about coming out, or when we came out. One is, do you remember when Ellen did the first kiss on TV?
Yes.
It was such a thing. At that point, I had known that I was gay. And I remember watching that with my mother and her saying, "Oh, that's disgusting." And I knew when I was 13 or 14 that I was gay, and I didn't come out until I was 17 or 18. And that moment probably delayed my coming out experience a period of time, whatever it was. And I talked about that with her, and I allowed her to apologize and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I made you feel this way. I'm sorry that I made you feel, unloved. The second conversation.
Because what you have to understand too, from a heterosexual perspective,
Yeah.
My mother, again, she's in this room, her energy is in here. My mother was never one to apologize. She knew with something that she did was wrong, she would acknowledge it. But the words, "I'm sorry," she said, was empty and shallow, because it is what it is. And because I lay a blanket on top of it, doesn't mean that it's still not cold. And it's the difference between being tolerant and total acceptance. Me as a Black woman, if you don't like Black people, okay, you can tolerate me. That means that there's going to be a certain amount of respect, mutual understanding. You're not going to, do anything. You don't have to accept me in your world. I can't force you to, come over and have dinner and have the Black experience and all this kind of stuff. I can't force you to do that, but I want you to acknowledge me. So many people in the world today, David, expect people to automatically assimilate. Okay, that is not what the world is about, and that is on the gay community. The heterosexuals have a bullseye on their back now. I will go to places. Yeah, I will go to somewhere. Okay, like the situation that I had. This particular person try to tell me what I should do as a woman, and you should have this conversation, and girl, and all. No. You out of line. Okay, you stay in your own lane, and that's okay. And I had to have this conversation. So it wasn't that I was trying to, I'm not a homophobe. I'm not. But are you a heterophobe? Because I didn't go along or conform with that. Now I got all these titles. I don't like this, that, and the other. No, I didn't particularly care for the conversation with you. That doesn't mean the whole community. But we are attacked all the time now.
I love telling a story, so I'm just going to go right. I had another experience with a friend of mine, and we were talking about the trans community. I'm clearly a very open person, and I have more experiences at a younger age with trans people than most. But we were talking. There's a few years ago. There's a proposition in Massachusetts to protect trans youth and all of that umbrella. And we were obviously talking about it, and I was talking about it. I looked at my father, and my father was a Republican. He wasn't, a Trump Republican. He was a Massachusetts Republican, who fiscally conservative, that whole mumbo jumbo. And I would talk about the perspective is that my father probably had never knowingly met a trans person in his entire life. My father, when he talked about it, voted in favor of protecting trans youth because he thought about it from the child, like if what if I was trans or something like that, and he would want me protective. But my father doesn't understand it. And to not give my father the grace to be ignorant but open to acceptance was what I was talking about, allowing my father to have the space to learn where he had had no experience with it. And because this other person was much more militant, because I was offering my father grace and an opportunity, I got called, "What are you, a Republican?" was the response to me. And I was like, no, it's not. It's about accepting people for where they are, giving them the opportunity to better and to gain knowledge. And I mean, what's worse, like being ignorant and wanting information, or choosing to be ignorant and saying that person's bad?
And you best believe there's a plenty of gay Republicans.
Oh, yep. That whole George Santos thing that's all over the news.
Oof. You know, Harvey Milk.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, was he? He was a Democrat. I think he was a Democrat.
I'm assuming he was Democrat because it was San Francisco, and I couldn't.
Okay, so I got an eye opener.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Italy months ago, and I do too. And I went through the Vatican. Oh yes. And I looked at the walls, and I looked at the paintings, and I looked at the statues, and there was a whole lot of get down going on back then. Okay, and there was orgies everywhere. I went to Pompeii. It was just amazing. It was a sexual revolution.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Vatican, now you will see where the men's penises and genitalia are shaved off, and there's a big patch of cement there because some of the popes and bishops found that it was offensive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, there was a lawsuit that said something else was going on, and they said that they wanted them to become celibate. So I looked at that and I listened to, and I saw how, Michelangelo painted his depiction of Jesus based off his fondness for Apollo. Not religious doctrine, but his infatuation. So there is a lot of hypocrisy in religious doctrines about homophilia.
I mean, and there's a lot of hypocrisy in
Everything.
in the gay community about not being open to hetero culture, hetero.
Right. But there's no way that you're going to tell me personally, that when I get up there, there's not going to be no gay people. Oh, yes, there's going to be a whole lot of gay people. My God makes no mistakes. No mistakes. Each person is created in his image. Whether you want to believe it as an individual brain or not, that's up to you to edit and filter, okay? But this is what it is, and it's across all spectrums. And what we have to learn to do is, like David said, is listen more, be open to it. It may not be your choice. That's like me. I'll go to a smorgasbord. If there's okra, I won't touch it. Okay.
Amen.
Okay. But if Mr. Magnificent wants it, I'm going to scoop it up and put it on his plate. It is about choices. It is about options. It is about love. It is about respect. And on both sides. And I'm really, really hoping that we can come to a happy medium, because people are going nuts on one side or the other. But let me ask you something else too. Why gay people got so much money? Gay folks got some money, baby. Okay. I didn't say that
actually, as we actually talk about this.
Do you first of all, you have your own banks? What is it in the gay community?
It's a two-part thing. Is that that's it's a little of a bit of a stereotype because it's not. I mean, just like all Asians aren't smart, or all Jews are not wealthy and cheap. So, but there is this a need when you're queer. It creates a need. Everybody goes on their journey. Not everybody feels safe on their journey, and education, being self-supportive, are things that, if you have a family that's not supportive, are things that you can create for yourself. Especially like we also don't have the cost of children, most of us.
Right.
God bless my sister. She's a single mother by choice. But I can afford my lifestyle, but I couldn't afford my lifestyle with a kid.
Right. The
No?
struggle is real. The struggle is
Yeah.
real.
I don't know how my sister raises a child. That it's very difficult. But I think feeling like an other makes a lot of gay people want to create safety with education and money, and also to be self-supportive because they didn't feel a lot of support in the community around them
And
when
they
they were
invest and they pour back into their own community.
right.
They make sure that their properties are upkept, that there's community centers, that there's medical resources. So they pour back into their own community, which is
because we all know what it's like to feel unsafe and and needy, and it creates a sense of, it creates a sense of, I need to help, because this is why I do coaching. This is my way of giving back to my community and to people who are at their lowest point in life when I was at my lowest point in life. Coaching allows me to sit with a person and create a safe space while they go on their journey of self-discovery and learning who they are, not just as a queer person, because there's more into their life that goes into identity than being gay, straight, trans, because you could be trans and a good person, you could be straight and a bad person, like it's the journey of discovery is what I love about coaching. And coaching comes from a place of there's nothing wrong with you. You are a whole person. You have all the answers for the journey of life ahead of you, and you can do it. You just have to get out of your own way, not let your saboteurs win, not let your demons define who you are in the future. You can always be better, do better, as long as you are with coaching helps you have the tools in your arsenal to push those aside and strive for who you want to be, and knowing who you are.
Okay, let's stop right there.
Okay.
These millennials is non-binary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. I'm trying. They don't want to be a he. We'll talk about the pronouns in a minute.
Yes.
They don't want to be a male or female. Well, how does that work for you when you go to pee?
Well, there's a difference between gender and sex.
Exactly, but they don't want to conform to either, as if it is, I am just a being, I am just a person. So, in my opinion, it's like a holding pattern. Like until I define, or until I am defined, or till I awaken myself. Now, and I'm not saying that you have to be male or female. I'm not saying that you have to be straight or gay or queer or trans, none of the labels, but I just don't want to just do nothing. I just want to be non-binary. I don't
I mean,
Explain that to
I've
me.
never lived the life of a non-binary person, but from my conversations with people who identify as non-binary is that they feel like they sit more in the middle of the spectrum.
Because I'm gonna tell you who's a bad non-binary is Magic Johnson's uh
No
child.
bad and good. No bad and
Okay,
good.
okay. Now let me tell you, I had a deep conversation with Cookie Johnson
Mhm.
at her book signing, and that is one book that you really need to read because she struggled, and
Mhm.
Magic didn't go along with it for the longest time. But
Mhm.
AJ is, let me tell you, the bread is buttered on both sides. Good looking, smart, educated, sure of themselves, confident. But again, I'm non-binary.
Mhm.
And again, I'm trying to get my head around that. But it's in the book of Revelations. It will tell I'm a Christian. So
Mhm.
I read the word. And it tells me right there what is unfolding from the plague to the sexual identity to the wars to the weather, all of that. All of that is right there. But when I see that, and your child says, well, I don't identify with either, that puts another added layer of confusion because you
Mhm.
don't know how to address, introduce, respond. You just don't know what to do as a parent.
Do you know how you find out what to do? You ask.
Work with you.
Well, that would be I mean, so let's say this child, this said child was on their journey of self-discovery and they're choosing to call themselves non-binary. Coaching would help them discover whether as if that's where they want to stay and that is their true identity, or if they are one gender or another, that's what coaching would do. And coaching would help you understand your role as a parent in supporting and lifting up your child and educating yourself, like how you as a human being want to show up for that other human being. One thing that I've learned is that, everybody lies a little bit, everybody fibs a little bit,
A
but I've
little
met
bit. Are
a
you?
little bit. But in the unless you're George Santos, how many people in your life have you actually truly met that are just liars? Lie about absolutely everything that's put before
Well,
them.
unfortunately, I
Huh?
ran into three or four,
Three or
and,
four.
but they lie for three reasons, David.
Hmm.
One is because they're insecure.
Yes.
Okay.
They
Two,
don't know who they are.
they don't know who they are, or
Mhm.
and they want to be bigger than what they are.
Yes.
Two, they want to try to get over.
Hmm.
They think that they're the sharpest knife in the drawer. They're going to try to get over on you. And three, because again, that self-esteem, it makes them feel more important that, I have to embellish. Everything
Mm,
has to be this or that.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pull out those type of people. You've said in your 60 years, you've met three or four people that were out and out liars.
Cold-blooded liars.
Right. Out of how many thousands of people that you've met over the course of your lifetime?
Okay.
I choose to believe people when they tell me their story. I choose to believe people when they tell me who they are and show me who they are,
You got to show
because showing is very important.
because
But I
talk is cheap.
believe I
Talk
agree.
is cheap.
But of the thousands of people I've met, the number of liars have not been, and I choose to play the odds. I choose to recognize that people want to be seen. They want to be loved for who they are.
Mm.
And, you know, me as another human being, or me as a coach, is to create that where they see it in themselves, where they love themselves, where they see themselves, where they feel safe in my space and safe to go out into the world and be who they are and tell people who they are and make people see them for who they are.
Okay.
Search
However,
for love,
okay,
however that may find you.
let's talk about the other thing, the high rate of suicide
Yeah.
in the community.
Yeah.
Again, Brains, I tell you from my observation, okay, that queer relationships seem to be more tender and delicate, and again, than heterosexuals, only because you find someone in this space, you develop monogamy, which is, I'm assuming.
Or you don't.
Yeah, that's what I said, because
or you don't.
it can be a very sexually fluid community.
Yes.
Okay.
To be ethically monogamous.
Right. Okay. So you do this, and then you invested this time. This person cheats. This person lies. They deceive you, or you're struggling with who you are. You're dealing with the family not accepting it. You're a young child. You're a young teenager. You're being bullied. You're really struggling and fighting against the forces of who you wake up and you realize that you are queer, but society says something else. You've got to live in this bubble, in this shame. And you know what? They're committing suicide. And I shouldn't say committing suicide. They're dying by suicide, because nobody commits to suicide. What do you say to that child and those parents that are struggling with that? Because, it's an ongoing struggle. They're self-medicating. They're hanging around with the wrong crowd, or let's add another layer. The person that's been violated. I knew a young woman that was sexually violated by her brother, her father, her uncle, and her cousin. She said if she seen a penis, she'd cut it off. She didn't want no part of that. But she still wanted the intimacy. She still wanted the tenderness. So, there's a lot of reasons. And a lot of times people think in their ignorance that, oh, well, they must have been turned out. Somebody must have did this or did that.
That's choosing to be ignorant. When someone says that, that's a choice.
And let's define ignorant. Ignorant is not knowing. Okay. It's not being educated. It's not that you're stupid. It's not that you're rude. It's not that you're violent. It's that you just don't know.
Yeah.
But that's a lot to deal with.
What I can say, when I was coming out, or when I was on my journey of self-discovery, I had a plan, I had a plan to how to end my life.
Really?
Yeah. And I think it's very common. I think that it's, at least for my section of the queer community, gay and lesbian, it has gotten better. I look at my younger friends, and it is, if you are living in a space that is accepting, there's more acceptance and openness to it, and less, I'm going to kick you out of my house and you're going to die. My mother's biggest fear was you're going to die from AIDS, when I came out, which is not a concern anymore. But I, talking about myself.
Now they're talking about monkeypox.
There's a vaccine, and I never felt like I could be myself. No one saw me as a human being until I, A, learned it myself, and B, I was suicidal until I came out of the closet.
Really?
I am, some would say, dysfunctionally close with my mom and my sister. Like, we are like 3 peas in a pod. I talk about my sister's choice to have a child. My sister was 38 years old, not in a relationship, never had a good, intimate relationship before, really, in her life. But she wanted to be a mother. I was there when my niece was conceived. I was there when my niece was born. I am basically the second parent, third parent, if you count my mother, to my niece. We raised my niece as a family. So, and when I say is conceived, I don't mean like anything, tawdry. Is my sister went through a
As I'm
natural.
telling you, I jumped to the pervert. I was like, damn it.
I say that me and my sister
So
love.
you
Me and
saw
my
it? You
sister
saw an actual?
me and my sister love telling that joke because there's two people who are like and clutch their pearls, or there are people who have like it's never a queer person because they all know what it's like to not be able to like conceive in the natural order, if you will. But my sister had egg retrieval, sperm donation, all of that stuff. And I was there when, they put the embryo inside my sister. Now, I didn't see anything. As far as I'm concerned, it's a Ken doll or a Barbie doll or whatever,
Right.
there's
It's
I was behind
the
the curtain.
bottomless pit. It's the hole.
I always like to say they have teeth. But for me, going back to knowing how close I am, now that you have that story, how close I am with my family, to not ever be able to show myself in my true colors is really disheartening. I mentioned the Ellen story, to hear your mother say, ugh, even though she doesn't remember it at all, but it was a defining memory of my childhood. To have all these outward cultural, political presentations of queer people as trans people, as you're a terrible human being, you're gonna rot in hell, you're gonna die of AIDS, you're gonna get monkeypox and get pustules all over you. To have all of those representations is damaging. And the same way of like, I'm sure you can relate to the story of like,
Of course.
growing up, how many round dolls were there? How many, there were not a lot of positive culture. It's the same thing. People of color have a higher rates of trans people of color, or people, and even queer people, like the whole spectrum of, let me pull that back. All queer people of color have higher rates of suicide than non people of color, because it's a double, not you don't see the queer part of you or the cultural part of you in any way representative, and and when they are, it's usually, for gay people, it's the person who dies from AIDS, the best friend who doesn't have a love life, whatever it may be. And there's not a lot of avenues for a young person who's influenced by social media or their friends or whatever to find, I'm a good person, I'm not going to hell, I'm not going to die of AIDS, I'm deserving and worthy of love. If I'm not deserving and worthy of love, what's the point in living? If I'm not deserving and worthy of success, of being seen as a basic human being first, as opposed to an identity first, then what's the point in living? And that's what these young people are hearing and seeing. And if a young person is lucky enough to have a parent that wants to seek me out, or a child that wants to seek me out, to help that person see life is worth living and the world is ahead of you, to help them gain some confidence, and to cherish the individuality, it brings me joy. It fills my heart.
Thank you so much, David, for being here with us on The Edge, and just really
Thank you for having me.
And enjoying in a conversation, because, Brains, you don't know what you don't know. And I have learned a lot, and I am growing and ever evolving because I'm a good listener. I'm very compassionate. I'm not a phobe of any kind. David's a little kinder than I am because he trusts from He trusts from day one. I don't. You got to ratchet up, baby. I'm gonna give you about 65, 75% margin for error, but that on the reverse side is for me too. And it's not, I would be disingenuous if I said that I didn't judge, because I don't judge you. Yeah, I don't judge you, but I have to judge because of my boundaries, because of what I deal with in the frontal lobe. But what I have evolved to in my 60 years, and with the help of great people like you and my mentor and my mother and my daughter and other family members, I've learned to go into that subconscious mind and pull out the other parts of me, the other parts that are curious, that are compassionate, that are willing to learn, evolve, and change. It's a process, and it's not over till it's over. So I say this to every gay person, every queer person, transgender, every human being, is that let's just try to understand one another on an individual basis. Don't lump everything together. Don't put okra on your plate if you can't eat it. Again, because life is a smorgasbord and you have options and you have choices. That's what makes us beautiful. Thank you so much, David, for
Thank you for having me. And I just want to say you are a light in the world. Full stop. You're wanting to educate the world and make people see the world from a perspective they don't see. Is there should be, if everybody was like you, we would be in a better light overall.
Thank you, because again, it's about learning. I don't know everything, and we're human beings. We are conditioned by the experience and by the world, but you know, it's changing, and we got to love these kids. We've got to let them know that it is okay for you to take your time to find out who you are. And I love you in spite of who you think you are or what Aunt Martha may say. Teach yourself some self-esteem and say, you know what, Aunt Martha, yes, I am gay. There's no need to whisper about it anymore. And let's talk about it.
Yes.
Call people out on it in a respectful kind of way.
Yes.
You know, wave your flag, baby. Wave your flag. It's okay.
How do I not have a little flag around here somewhere?
I know, absolutely.
I not have a flag around me.
You have to really kind of do that, and the world will be a much better place. David, tell my brains how to get in contact with you. Your website. I'm waiting for the audio book. Okay? I'm waiting for you to go ahead and do it.
All right. If you want to contact me, you can go to my website, thequeercoachdavid.com, and you can reach out to me through that. You can get all my information there. And if you want to know the top 7 things you need to know about coming out, there's a little tab that you can click there, and you can learn if you're trying to, you know, learn more about yourself or help out one of your children or your friends.
Thank you. You are the best, brains. No matter who you are, you're a human being.
Yes.
All on this planet, and the struggle is real for every one of us. Okay. Yes. Love you from the bottom of my socks, David, because my heart just isn't deep enough.
Love you too. Thank you.